everybody. Welcome to Saturday Stories, our virtual Saturday Stories monthly program. I'm Claire Prenice, and it's my pleasure this morning to introduce Sergio Ruzzier, who's joining us from Italy. Before we get started with Sergio's amazing workshop this morning, I just want to talk a little bit about Saturday Stories and also about the original art show. So Saturday Stories started in 2018 in the Society of Illustrators in the galleries, and we would do our program there and have illustrators who were more locally, either locally visiting or living in the area to come and do their program in person. But since the pandemic, we then decided let's do this virtually. And so in 2020, it became a virtual program. And this has actually enabled the program to reach more people all over the place, all throughout the United States, Canada, and across the Pacific and across the Atlantic. So it's actually become a more exciting program. And we can visit illustrators in their studios, which is a lot of fun. And we are continuing to do it virtually, even though little by little we're now doing in-person programming at the Society of Illustrators in Manhattan. We are still going to keep this a virtual program as well. We have sponsors to thank for that. Bless you there, Sergio. And I want to just thank also a new sponsor, the Cornelia T. Bailey Foundation, who very generously given us a donation towards this programming. And also coming up, very exciting news, because the Society of Illustrators Original Art Show is about to open next week. Yay! We have 240 illustrators represented from the best picture books of 2022. Sergio is one of them, so you can see one of his illustrations from No, Said Custer the Squirrel. And Sergio has been in many of the original art shows. We were trying to work out how many, we think at least 10. So he's often in our shows, his work is so original, so unique, so endearing. And if you don't already have books of his in your home collection, you really should, because I think they're wonderful books to read over and over again. And the show will be, as I said, opening on the 26th of October, running through January 7th. If you can, come in person and see the show. And we look forward to seeing everybody here for different workshops. Also, if you can't come in person, we will be running virtual programming around the show, so you'll get to meet some of the illustrators who are in the show doing their different programs, whether they're doing a workshop or they're on a panel. It's always interesting to hear how they got started in the business, learn more about their artistic style or how they write their books, because a lot of illustrators also write their own books as well. Some, of course, illustrate other authors' books. So there's a lot of variety in the OA show. You see different styles of art, from hand-drawn traditional drawing styles to digital to collage. And that's always exciting to see as well as all the different themes that the books are on. So that's a little bit about the show. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Sergio. So Sergio was born in Milan, so he's really Italian, and he came to America as an adult. He had already started his illustration career in Italy, where he was doing more comic style work and editorial illustration. I think more so in black and white, just perhaps experimenting with color. But when he came to America, he got engaged in doing some picture books, and as you can see, his style is in watercolor, and very unique method of doing his watercolors. So we get a really behind the scenes treat this morning. Oh, sorry, that's the front door buzzing at the society. So yes, we'll see a behind the scenes look at how he does his watercolor. Watercolor is not easy to use, as those of you have tried, but it is a beautiful medium. And if you are to use ink pen, which Sergio does, you obviously need to have permanent black ink, because otherwise your watercolor will just smudge that ink line. I'm just letting some of our younger viewers know that, because obviously some of you may not have even tried ink pen and watercolor yet, but it is lovely to try that. I always sort of say, try some different mediums when you get a chance. So Sergio was in America for a number of years. He actually was living in Brooklyn, but recently moved back to Italy. He lives in the Apennine Mountains near Bologna, and it looks like a lovely spot to be working away in Italy there. And of course, Italy is a beautiful and very artistic country, so I hope to go there myself next year. And Sergio has done many books, many picture books, written lots of books, and also illustrated other authors as well. He's won many awards. A very significant award was in 2019 when he won the Geisel Award. That's Theodore Geisel, Dr. Seuss to some of you. It's a very high award, and it was Best Picture Book for his book series, actually. Fox and Chick, The Party was the first series, and a fantastic book series. Love those characters. As always, one of my favorite themes is friendships in books between different characters and seeing the different personalities that go on between the two characters. Anyways, I don't want to go on too much longer because we're going to learn much more about Sergio Ruzzier himself, from himself. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over the program this morning to Sergio Ruzzier. Thank you for joining us this morning, Sergio.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be at the society, even if I'm on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. I crossed the Atlantic Ocean for the first time to move to New York City in 1995. So I lived in New York for 23 years total. And yeah, no, like a few years ago, my daughter Viola was moved to Montreal to study, and I was a little tired of living in big cities. Milan is a big city, New York City is a big city. So that's why I felt like I wanted to stay in a quiet place, and I love the countryside in the United States, but there was something that was missing, which is the old stones, the old houses, and so the house that I bought with Karen, my wife, is a house from the 15th century, so it's more than 500 years old.
Beautiful.
And yeah, no, it's really nice, and it has some problems because the windows are still pretty old and the wind comes in, but I prefer that to a plastic or aluminum window. So I can start telling you a little bit about me, if it's okay, unless you have specific questions, Claire, and we can go.
No, we would love to have your presentation for us, hear all about you, and then I'm sure everyone will be generating questions in their minds as you're sharing your work. So do pop your questions.
Any questions you might have, I'm happy. Yes. Claire will read them for me.
Yes, you write them in the chat or in the Q&A for us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and okay, and you can interrupt me, and I'm happy to answer anything. Let me start with this. Okay. Share screen.
I think you hit play, right?
Yeah, but I was opening the wrong one.
Oh, you're on the wrong one. Yeah, we had a little practice run before. We know which one works well. So I hope you're all getting your drawing materials ready, and you're going to draw along. And don't forget to send in your work. We'd love to see you email in your drawings. Sergio would love to see those. And if you email them to my email address, which Tim, who's behind the scenes at the Society, he will write my email address in the chat if you're not already familiar with it. So please don't be shy, just send in your illustrations. We will share them with Sergio for sure. Okay.
Okay, Claire, can you see the slide? Claire, can you see the first slide?
Oh, no, I'm not seeing your slide yet, actually. Sorry about that. No, not quite yet.
Okay, I think then I have to
so while Sergio's just sorting out that little logistic, remember we are very honoured to have him joining us from Italy. So it's far away, and he might need to just do a little bit of adjusting with the sharing of his screen, because he's going to share some slides with you, which you'll really enjoy. So don't forget to write where you're from in the chat, and have your drawing materials ready. So we'll be doing the workshop after. Sergio is going to not only just do a little presentation, but he's also going to read No Said Custard. So there we go. Okay, we're in with a slide, but we now need the sort of full screen. Yay, perfect.
Okay, good. So I apologize for that. Just that earlier it worked fine. Of course, now it did exactly the same things.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so here I am. That's me when I was not cute yet. And I was near, I think I was 4 here. Just wanted to start with a little picture. And this is a nice old map of Italy with a red dot. I don't know if you see the red dot up there.
Yes.
Top left.
Yeah.
That's where Milan is. That's where the city I was born and grew up is. This is actually a very old map of Italy. There are parts, this is first World War I. But I like the look of this map with that one.
Yeah, it's a nice map.
And this is the map of the world, more or less. And I just wanted to show in the middle there is the Atlantic Ocean. And that's the sea that I crossed when I moved from Italy to the United States. The United States, as you probably all know, is the one that has that greenish, muddy color in this map.
Yeah.
When I tell people that I'm from Italy, they usually imagine, you know, sunny skies and nice things on the beach and beautiful fields of sunflowers. Well, Milan, when I grew up, most mornings, especially from October to March, look like this.
Oh, that's what I mean. Looks like England.
Exactly. Milan is very much like London in that sense. I was very polluted. I was very foggy. I actually love fog. I love to ride my bike in the fog. Sometimes I couldn't even see the front wheel. So you have to go very slow, not to crash on.
Definitely.
But the thing in the middle there is the sun. And I swear this is the photograph that I took in color. This is a color photograph.
Really? Very funny.
And the thing is, okay, I'll tell you something about this. When I as I was telling you before, I always loved old things, old houses, old cities, old towns. And Milan, even though it's a very ancient city originally, it's been around for 2,000 years, but the look of it right now is very modern. It's very, very modern. Like most of what you see in Milan was built after World War II, and my neighborhood in particular was built in the 1960s. That's when I was born, and it's a kind of a boring town where I live, around where I used to live. And all the streets are either vertical or horizontal, if you see them on a map. Right. But there was one thing, so everything is very, orthogonal, every square, always square. But there was one thing that was very close. This is just around the corner from my house, from the house I lived in, a big building where I lived in. And it's a little church that's called Little Church of the Lizards. That's the popular name for this church. And it's the only thing that is not, that it doesn't follow the same structure as the rest of the city. And so it's considered slanted. It's like the only thing in the neighborhood that is not complying with the guidelines. But then you think about it, and this church has been there since probably the 1100s, like about 1,000 years. And everything else around there was just fields. Right. So I feel like it's the city that was built slanted compared to the church and not the opposite. So I was always very fond of this little church that was always a little off, a little, and to my eye, I really felt sympathetic with this little church. Yeah. Yeah. And as you can see, this is my first year of elementary school. first grade, and I am the one in the front with the color that was supposed to be like everybody else's, but mine was completely slanted. And I was not doing it on purpose. I'm the one with the mouth open, even though we were not singing or anything. I was just being silly with the mouth open. And even though my stocks are very pretty and kept well and everything, but I always had to have something slanted, something off. And I'm still like that today. So okay, this is something that I did when I was in my fourth grade. This is a character from a comic book that I did. And I'm going to tell you something because I think, I don't know how many of you who are listening are now in school, in elementary school, in middle school, in kindergarten. But I was very lucky in a way because my elementary school teacher from third grade to fifth grade, because in Italy, still now, you have the same teacher through your career of elementary school. If you start with one teacher in first grade, you have the same teacher until fifth grade. And in my case, I had one teacher in first and second, then I had to change schools because they built one new one closer to my home. So I moved in third grade and I met a teacher, La Signora Santarelli, Mrs. Santarelli, who was really very important for me because she really, and I was not a good student at all, but I knew that she liked me. I knew that she liked what I was, when I would say something, when I would try something, when I would draw something. She was always very interested. Maybe every other kid felt that way. She was a very good teacher, but I felt like I was understood by her. And so I remember every Thursday we had to do a written composition, like we had to write a story. And usually the Signora Santarelli, she would give us a few titles to choose from as an inspiration for our essay, for our story. And I remember that I was always a pain because I was always unhappy with the titles that she would come up with. And I always, at the end, I would always ask her, can you just add to this list of titles a free thing, like we can do whatever we want? And she usually resisted, but at the end she would say, okay, do what, as long as you write something, because at the end she will lose her patience, do that. But this particular Thursday, I didn't feel like writing, I didn't have any ideas, and I was bored, and time was going on, and was, usually we would have like 4 hours to write this thing, so we had all the time in the world, but I would waste a lot of time doing other things, playing, chatting with my classmate. So
it does, yeah.
So Santarelli would tell me, come on, Sergio, you have to do something. It's almost time to deliver, so you have to do. And I said, I don't know what to write. And I thought that she would say no. This is 1970s in Italy, so she was very, forward-minded and everything, but she was still a teacher in a public school in Italy in the 1970s. And so I thought that she would say no, but I asked, can I do a comic book instead? Can I do a comic book instead of writing an essay or writing a story? And she looked at me very seriously and she said, look, if you are serious about it, so what I mean is if you write a story and you illustrate it, so you do a comic book, it's fine, but it has to have an interesting story, it has to have a beginning, an ending, something interesting needs to happen in the story. So if you do it there, if you're serious about it, then I will value it as if it was an actual, composition in Italian. Of course,
yeah.
So that was the first time that I felt, oh, so I can, the adult world, the real world, the official world, will accept something that I come up with, even though it's a funny, silly comic book, which I love to do, and I love reading comics, so it was my universe, so that's my world. But if I'm serious about it, the way I do it, then it will be considered worth it. So that was a big change in my mind. So I didn't really think, oh, maybe when I'm old, when I'm an adult, I will do this as a job. I still didn't have this in my mind, but I think something germinated in my mind then. And I'm going to show you a few of the books that I liked when I was little. This is the Italian edition of Little Bear, illustrated by Maurice Sendak. And these books were wonderful for me. I learned how to read on these books, but I also really love the drawings. And there is such warmth. And these drawings were done in pen and ink. You can see the line that Maurice Sendak drew with his pen, with his nib. So this I loved as a kid when I was reading the stories. I love the characters, I love the story, the colors, the feel. But then when I was older, when I was like 14, 15, when I started to use pen and ink for my own pleasure, I remember these books and I went back to look at them, to use them as an example of what you can do with pen and ink. So it was very important to me, this book, when I was little, because it was like my favorite books, and also when I was a little older, when I started to draw. And as I was saying, I love comics, and one of my favorite characters were Peanuts. So Charlie Brown, Linus, and Snoopy, and all that. So I was reading a lot of these comics, and also Popeye by Elvin Seeger. And fortunately, in the 80s, in Italy, they were republishing or publishing for the first time in Italy all American comic strips from the 1920s, the 1930s, and I love them. So I would buy these magazines, and it's true that I would read any comic that I found. I love comics of any kind, of all kinds, but this particular that I'm showing here, I really love. Another book that I love, that is actually, you can find it in this one. It's an Italian book by Dino Buzzati, but you can find it in the United States as well, translated very well. And it's the famous invasion of the bears in Sicily. Or I think it's the title in English is The Bears' Famous Invasion of Sicily, I believe. Anyway, it's a great book. It's a wonderful book, and the same guy who wrote it, Dino Buzzati, who's a famous writer, he also a painter. He also did the illustrations. And this is the first, I was probably 8 or 9 when I read this one. It was the first book that was kind of long. It was like a novel that I read on my own. And then this is the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. In the Italian edition, and this is also a book that I really loved as a kid.
Me too.
Okay, then when I was maybe 12 or so, 12, 13, I started to read, or maybe even a little earlier, to really be fascinated by Hieronymus Bosch, this Dutch painter, Flemish painter from the 1500s, and 1500, and I really love the craziness in his paintings when I was a kid, and I love the colors, I love the compositions. This is one of the least crazy of his drawings or his paintings, probably.
Yeah.
If you look at Hieronymus Bosch paintings, you will find a lot of interesting inventions, creatures of all kinds. But I put this one because it was really the one that I liked the most when I was a kid. And I would look at the details. I would look at that big egg-like plant in the middle with a bird picking at whatever seeds inside, and then those rocks in the background. Those rocks are very crazy. Like they don't exist like that. But you would draw them, and because they are in the painting, they exist. They are there. They are true. And I realized that. Once you can draw, you can imagine anything you want, and when you put it on a drawing or a painting, nobody can tell you they don't exist, but they exist right there. So you feel like you have this kind of power when you draw, right? To create things, even though nobody else has ever seen them before. And it's actually, to me, it's the exciting thing of drawing, when you create something that nobody else has seen before. That's why I was not really one of those kids who would copy, even though, as I was saying, I love comics, but I never felt, I was never interested in copying other people's work. Like, not even the classic would be a kid drawing Mickey Mouse or the kid drawing Snoopy. And maybe I've done it, but it was not my thing. I didn't enjoy copying because I could tell that, well, already like Charles Schulz is already drawing Snoopy so beautifully. Even if I get to be as good as he is at drawing Snoopy, he's already done it before. So what's the point? So I would develop my own things, my own character. And this is another painting that I really like, Simone Martini. And this is from the 1300, so 700 years ago. And this scene I particularly like because it's this saint who's doing a miracle. He's saving a little kid who had fallen from the balcony, but like a little bit like Superman. It looks a little bit like Superman. And but it's funny because in this painting actually it looks like he's saving the piece of wood more than the kid. But anyway, but you can see that in the same picture there are two moments of the story. One as the kid is falling, who is dead maybe, but then you see him on the right and he's actually alive, still alive. So in the same painting there are two moments, a few minutes apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love the composition of this. I really love that all those red warm tones in the backgrounds, and then there are these figures with blue clothes, and it's a very nice, satisfying contrast for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so I was saying that I came to New York City. I went to New York City in 1995. It didn't look like this, but I liked old pictures more than more recent pictures, so I put this one instead. I don't know if any of those buildings are still existing, but so in New York City, I started working as an illustrator. I was very lucky because when I came the first time, a friend of a friend sent me to Paul Davis, to see Paul Davis, who is a very famous illustrator, and he helped me. My English was zero, was close to zero, so he was very nice and helped me. And he called for me the New Yorker magazine, the art director, and he sent me there, and then they gave me some work. So for me, it was really a great beginning, and I have to be very, I'm very thankful to Paul Davis and the people who suggested me to go there. And so, but besides doing illustrations and later books, I also made a daughter. This is Viola on the left, and who is a very good, she's always been a very good reader. Now she's 22, and she always read. I write to her every night, and it was really nice. It was a really good moment when I would sit there and by her bed and read books to her and chat about them. And the one on the right is Lena, who also likes books, but she's still at books right now. But she's a cat. So. And Lena is still around, is still with us. We brought her with us to Italy. So
wow.
But she still reads more books.
How old is she?
Lena is, I think, 14, 15.
Ah, wonderful.
Yeah. We found her around the Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn. She was little. She was like maybe 3 months old, and we found her and brought her home.
Oh, and now she's in Italy.
And now she lives in Italy. So as Claire was saying, I did some editorial illustrations, but what I really wanted to do was tell stories. I really like to tell stories, either in comic form or in picture book form. And in the United States, I was able to really to in New York City, especially to meet in person many editors and art directors who work in publishing, and it was difficult at first to enter the world of children's books because my my illustration style was considered a little bit too, they were telling me this sentence, so I'm repeating them the way they would say them, that my work was too sophisticated, too European, which I never really understood what it means. I still don't understand what it means, European, because it's so diverse anyway. The European side of it, I think it exists, but anyway. So it was difficult at the beginning, but then I met through Peter Sis, who's another great illustrator.
Yeah.
That I really love the work of, and I met him, and he was super nice, and he gave me a lot of advice, and he sent me to his own publisher, editor Frances Foster, who at the time was at Parastos Giroux, and she liked my work, and she started to publish me. So I've done Room of Wonders and other books with her. I also illustrated a few of Laurie Siegel's books and Emily Jenkins for Frances. Unfortunately, she's not with us anymore, but she was a great editor and a great person. So these are just a few of the drawings I did. The letter for Leo. This was published by Clarion Books. This is about a postman who finds a little bird in the mailbox, and he doesn't know what to do with it, and then he kind of adopts it. This is not a picture book. This is published by Chronicle Books. This is Two Mice, and I actually have a little presentation after this. So maybe I will stop here for a moment in case there are questions. And if there are no questions, I'm happy to answer them. If there are no questions, I will keep with this presentation, because I'm going to show you the process, how I did this.
Yeah, I think at this point, Sergio, I think everyone's looking and not writing questions quite yet, but do write them. If you think of them even during the presentation, just write in that chat or in the Q&A your question, and I probably will just ask those questions during the workshop portion, so that way we can all enjoy your presentation, Sergio. It's so nice to see everything, and maybe not stop too much. Yeah. Just keep going. Yeah, just keep going.
I'm happy to interrupt and answer questions.
Yeah, we'll do questions later, I think. But you know, I have a lot of questions, so keep going.
Okay, this is me at my desk, drawing with my pen and ink. These are some of the tools that I use. On top, there is just a pencil. The one right below is a different pencil that I use both. One is smoother, one is softer, and one is harder. Usually I use the softer one to sketch, to do when I'm doodling, to look for the right character maybe, or the right composition, and then I sketch with smoother and darker, softer pencil. And then when I'm doing the preparatory final drawing, I do it with a 3H, so with a harder pencil. Yeah. Then when I'm happy with the composition, I trace it onto a watercolor paper using a light box.
Yes, perfect.
And then when I'm done tracing it with my pencil, then I ink it. And I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you later so that I don't have to stop this presentation. I'm going to ink it using the pen and nib. Do you see that metal tip in the third tool from the top? That's the point of a pen. It's the nib, the metal nib. I will show you how I use it in a moment. And of course, the one below is just in the bottom, just a brush for watercolor. I have 7 or 8 of these of different sizes. And these are the watercolors that I use. Usually I use Schminke. Yeah. I mentioned the paper. I usually use Arch paper, watercolor paper, the rough kind, the rough surface. Mm-hmm. And I use Schminke watercolors, which I like very much.
Yeah.
Look how messy this thing is. Now I want to see if this will start. Okay, yes. So we can see this.
Yes.
This on the right is pen, it's ink, black ink. And that's me tracing again onto that watercolor paper, you can hear the sound of the nib, scratchy sound of the paper, because the paper is very rough. But I really like the wobbly line that comes because of that paper. And it's true what Claire was saying, that the permanent black ink is the only reliable ink to use if you intend to use watercolor on top of it afterwards. But there are tricks to use different colors. If you look at Coster, for example, I will show you later, the line in Coster in many of my books is sepia. So it's a light brown. It's a light grayish brown, a little transparent. It's not as thick as black. What I do is that it doesn't run because I dilute it a lot with water so that it's less pigment. And then I put a little bit of black to make it more permanent, more reliable. So it does run a little bit. You see sometimes a little smudges, but it's actually kind of charming in my mind.
Yeah, definitely.
So you can use colored inks, being very careful though, because you have to really test it before you ruin the whole drawing. You do a whole detailed drawing, it takes you a couple of days to do it, and then you go over with a watercolor and you mess it up completely. But there are ways to use different. Also, that's the way I do it. Some other people do the watercolor first, and then when it's all dry, they go over it with the pen and ink. There are many ways to. What I'm showing here is just my way of doing things. Other illustrators, other artists use different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
These are some of the books that Claire was talking about. It's the first two of Fox and Chic. These are comics. So I was doing comics when I was in my early 20s in Italy. Then I have done it for a while, and a few years ago I started with the series, and I really enjoy working on it. There are 4 now, and the last one came out earlier this year. It's called Fox and Chic Up and Down. And these are some of the tables, the plates, of the pages. And yeah, so I just wanted to, okay, doing comic books and doing picture books is different, for sure. Each book has a different, you need a different process. And it changes also if you write a story or if somebody else wrote a story. There are many differences in the process. In this case, this is a comic book that I wrote and illustrated. Usually when I do my picture books, I write on text and pictures at the same time. But because this is a comic book and the text is just dialogue, there is no description, there is nothing. And the dialogue is very important to really give the story the pacing, the rhythm. So for the first time, I have to say, I wrote on the text before working on the drawings. I mean, in my mind, I knew what was happening in the drawings, but it really helped me a lot to really divide the text into pages and spreads and pages and single panels, and then really think about what the characters were telling each other. And that helped me a lot. Like you can see in blue what will be printed on the book, and in black just the description of what's happening, which is not going to happen show in the book. It's just a way for me to remember what happens in each panel. So this is a page from the manuscript of one of the stories in Fox and Chic.
Right.
And this is the first sketch that I do after I'm done with the text. As I was showing you, this is the first very quick sketch that I do with a regular pen or a pencil or a point, ball pen, whatever. I just want to put down the idea. So it's not particularly good drawings. It's not the point. The point is to see if the sequence works, dialogue works.
Mm-hmm.
And I already put there a little bit of the expressions that I want the characters to have. Anyway, this is the storyboard or the dummy, the rough sketches. Once I'm done with this, I do a much more detailed pencil drawing. Here, I didn't even draw the last little chip yet. These are the pencil preparatory drawings. When I'm done with this, then as I was saying, I trace them in ink. So this is the same drawing inked. So the paper is different because it's watercolor paper. It's inked. Then I gave the gray tones with watercolor. This is all by hand on paper. I know when I show it like this, it looks like it's digital, but it's not. It's just I just scanned the same drawing at different moments. So in this case, because I wanted to keep the color consistent throughout 4 books, so I decided to first give all the gray tones and then have kind of flattish, flatter than normally I would do it, colors afterwards. So this is the actual photograph of the drawing. You see the texture of the paper in this picture. I took it on purpose so that you see the texture. On the book, you don't see as much texture. You see it like this. And I was showing you this one. On top, there is an alphabet that I handwritten with my pen and ink. And then the designer designed a typeface, the one below, the design typeface, which we use to write to compose the text on the book. I actually wanted to write it all by hand, but then they realized that not all kids can read easily a text that is not written with a very clear typeface. Mm-hmm. So I was very happy to compromise and practically design together with the designer a typeface that would work for me aesthetically and for the reader, for any reader to be able to read it. And this is the printed page. Okay. Yeah. And this is the one that came out last year. This is another book that I did last year, and it was the beginning of a series as well, published by Harper. And it's in that series I Can Read books, and actually that Little Bear by Maurice Sendak came out in this series. So I'm very happy to be working on the same tradition in a way.
Yes.
So this is a fairly new series of comics within the I Can Read brand, and it's comics for little kids of different levels. And this is Fish and Sun, and I did Fish and Wave. Now, right now, I will show you a little later. I'm working on the third one that is called Fish and Worm. Fish and Worm.
Yes. And Fish and Wave, right?
Wave came out in June, and now I'm working on Fish and Worm. So just here, I'm just showing you two.
Beautiful colors. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm going to show you, because this book had this particular, so there is this fish. I'm going to say briefly, this fish, he's a little bored. He wanted to do something fun, and finally he sees the sun coming out. I'm going to go very fast. Look at the movement that the sun does.
Yeah, so gorgeous.
In the pages, you see the whole day of the sun, from the sunrise to the sunset.
You know what, Sergio, just seeing it on the screen moving like that, it's such a beautiful animation. It's beautiful as a picture book, but it's going to be really nice also as a a little animation too. Yeah.
I love animation. I'm a little lazy, so I never went really seriously into animation because it's a lot of work. But it's a beautiful
I know it is. I know. Molly from our participants says that they read Fish and Wave and loved it. And
Oh,
Jan is saying she's loving learning everything. So we're getting some lovely comments in the chat. Thank you for your comments, everyone.
thank you, guys. And then what else?
It's great. And we all want to say no. So we can all relate to this, as you were saying, the annoying mouse rat character asking too many questions.
Also, Claire, did you have questions about this book?
Yes. So yes, we've got some participants clapping in the background where they're all sitting. So very enjoyable book, right, everybody? So yeah, I do have some questions actually, and do write any of your own questions as you think of them. I just wondered how you came about picking these two characters to be in this story, whether they sort of came to you first because you were drawing some illustrations, and maybe these were characters that you just were enjoying drawing, and then you thought of a story to include them in, or whether you came up with that story about saying no. And also, where did you get the name Custard? It's a great name.
You know, how do you get the idea for a book is one of the most difficult questions to answer. But in this case, it's actually, I know exactly how it came to my mind, the story, this character, and everything. Because my friend Sophie Blackhall, who's a great illustrator as well, also an illustrator. Once she sent me a picture of a stuffed animal, a stuffed, like it's not this one, but it's similar to this one. Right? Oh, can you see me now?
Oh, yes, you've got a stuffed duck there. Yes, so Sophie sent that to you.
Well, this one is actually similar to that duck, but she didn't send me this. She sent me just to give you an idea, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, and it was actually much more similar to Costa than this duck. So it had a little stupid hat and jacket and little useless wings. It was like a very goofy character.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "What's the name of this character?" she asked. And I said, "Oh, that's Custer the Squirrel." And it came from nowhere.
Oh.
I said, "Oh, Custer the Squirrel."
Wow.
And I said, "Oh, Custer the Squirrel, that's interesting. It could be someone who calls himself Custer the Squirrel, and then he's gonna fight for the right of being considered Custer the Squirrel."
Yeah, being who he wants to be.
He knows he is Custer the Squirrel. Whatever other people might think of him, or we don't even know gender.
Yes.
So that's how the idea. And actually, in 5-10 minutes, then I got the whole idea of someone who would bug Custard, trying to convince him, trying to make him confess that he was actually a duck and not a squirrel, but he wouldn't relent. Custard the Squirrel is very sure that he's Custard the Squirrel and nothing else.
Yes.
And exactly that way. And
yes.
He has more fun that way. He's not going to do all the things that ducks normally do because maybe Custard finds them boring or whatever. He doesn't. Custard has his own or her own ideas.
Yes, so I do have some questions or comments in the chat to just share with you. So Molly says, what a great book. Where did you get your inspiration for stories? Well, you just touched on that. That was sort of more like a spontaneous character name that came up from nowhere. But I think often when you're an illustrator, and you can say if you think the same, Sergio, when you're an illustrator and you're drawing lots of characters, they start as drawings and then names come to you or stories that go along with them, and that might be decided by maybe the expression that you've drawn on their face or the clothing or accessories they might be wearing if they're anthropomorphic characters. So I think as an illustrator, you can start with character as an actual image first and then go from there with stories. And then other times there might be just a story that you want to write and you have to put those characters into the story. So I think it goes both ways, don't you think?
Exactly. No, I agree perfectly with what you just said. Also, each book is different, so that's why it's difficult to make a generic a generic.
Yes, everyone is different. True. This is a very interesting. Sorry.
No. I'm so happy that at least for custard, I have a very clear origin story of it.
Yes, you did, didn't you? Yes, you did.
I don't have it's a little sketch of a character that I drew on a piece of paper.
Yes.
I held it for 2 years, and then I go, oh, wait a second, this little character is my
yes.
something.
And you know, Sophie must be quite tickled that character came from the card you sent her and everything. It's like, and I love Sophie Blackall's work as well. So Jan has had an observation. She said, how did you ever decide to put that broken floor tile in one of the illustrations near the middle? Oh, there we go. A broken floor tile.
Oh, broken. You know, that's one of the things that I enjoy doing. Oh, let's look for it. The broken tile, for some reason, is something that I think I enjoy drawing. I believe she mentions this one, right? She was talking about this one, I believe, this page.
Yes.
And I enjoy drawing, like designing floors, like old floors. But yes. I feel like until I put some dirt in it or some cracks in the tiles, I'm not satisfied. If I did this all clean and all perfect, new, I would feel there was something missing. I have no idea why. I don't know why.
And it adds to the charm, and also, you know, it's your heritage. You're from Italy, where everything is so old. You're used to seeing, that beautiful patina. So I'm sorry that, you know, we're not doing this in person, so I'm not sure. I've got a few Jan or Jan. So you know, if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, please forgive me. So they also said the end papers are so much fun, and another Jan says, great story. Are your stories and characters ever autobiographical? That's interesting.
Well, I have to confess that I'm actually a duck myself. Yes.
You're not a squirrel, you're a duck.
Yeah. No, but I feel like nothing that I've done is knowingly autobiographical.
Right.
I never wrote. I mean, there is one book, but I published in Italy. It's not in the States yet, so it would be difficult to explain what it is. But I haven't done any book that is really something that happened to me and I put it on a page.
Gotcha,
but I'm sure there are some, you know, traits of my character that come out in my characters in my book.
Yes.
In my books. So I'm sure there are like some expressions, facial expression of the characters that are my own, or some words that I would use. You know, when you write a picture book, there are so few words that you really have to think about each word that you're using, and it needs to be the right word. It needs to be, so you make a very important selection of what words you want to use, and that betrays parts of your personality anyway. Even just the way what words you use and how.
Yes, it just becomes part of you. Probably even from people you've met in your life, you get inspired, and it's sort of like subliminal. I am actually going to say, let's get started with your workshop now, because people are asking, how can you show us to do expressions? What size paper do you use? So maybe during the live part of the workshop, you can answer some of those questions too. So I'll let you get started, because Sergio is now going to move the camera. We're going to highlight his hands drawing. And I'm going to let you know that T. Thomas Seelig, who's joining us from Olympia, Washington, says, I absolutely love your work and thank you for sharing. So thank you for saying that. And we're glad you're here this morning. And of course, we do upload this to the YouTube channel for the Society of Illustrators. For those who couldn't join, and you may have other people you know who'd really enjoy this, so they can watch it again in another week when we've edited it and put it on our YouTube channel. You can also revisit it, because you may want to just hear it all again. I know I will. So thank you, Sergio, while you're getting ready there.
Yes, I'm gonna go to my desk. I'm gonna show you a few of the drawings from Custard, so you see how big they are, how they look when they're on
perfect. Yes, excellent. It's so true. So Jan is saying, oh, it cracks me up and it's so real and funny. It's true. Sergio's characters are just like that. And some of my favorite books are this style of writing. And to your point, Sergio, being able to do it as a cartoon style comic strip with dialogue, it really brings your characters so to life because you can hear the voices and it's so fun to read it aloud, particularly if you're reading to a younger child. You can do the voices. It's so fun. And this is in the spirit of some of the favorite illustrators that Sergio has been inspired by, like the great Maurice Sendak, who actually, Sergio was a Sendak fellow, which means he got to go stay with Maurice Sendak, who sadly passed away now, but you know, he's left such a legacy of incredible books. And you went to stay with him, which was amazing. And also you are inspired by his Little Bear book series, which are absolutely charming and books that I read as well. And that cross-hatching style illustration is not an easy style to draw, but I think you did have a go at drawing in that way as well, because you're an ink and pen illustrator. So it's always great to try different techniques. And if you have a favorite illustrator, like Sergio might be your favorite illustrator, you can try to draw in his style, which we're now going to have a great opportunity to see him drawing. But you might adapt and find a different pen that you prefer, or you don't want to do watercolor because you have to let it dry, etc. You might want to do colored pencils. So you just draw along with whatever materials you have at home right now. Sorry, I'm just kidding.
So Claire, I'm ready whenever you want to switch the video to.
Enjoy reading though. Hello, it's always busy at the Society of Illustrators, so there was a tour just going by my office where I'm actually sitting doing this Saturday Stories programs. I just let them know they're going to go up to the dining room where there's an exhibit up there so we can hear more clearly. Sorry about that. That's the beauty of doing things live, Sergio. You never know what's going to happen.
So tell me if you can. Okay, you can see my desk right now, correct?
Yes, and I know Tim behind the scenes is going to now highlight your desktop. Yes, which he has done.
Okay, wonderful.
They're all good.
So I'm gonna start showing you one original drawing from Costa that we just saw. Actually, I picked that same yes,
drawing
with the broken tile. So this is my hand, and this is the drawing. So the drawing is actually, I do the drawings slightly smaller than the printed page. I'm gonna show you because if you look at the two mice here, see that the mouse in the original drawings, it's like 90% of the size of the mouse printed. And I do that because I really like to see the line that I do with the ink. And many illustrators do the opposite. They draw larger than the size of the printed size. But I also like, because I do watercolor, especially when there is, I don't know, a big sky or a big surface like this, it's easier to control it if it's not too big. I like to do surfaces, like large surfaces of color, but when it's really big, it's difficult to make it even. So I prefer to, I like, I like manuscript illumination from the Middle Ages, and they're like tiny little drawings that are beautiful and are very precious, and I kind of like to reach for that.
Yes, that's a very good answer to that question. Actually, it makes a lot of sense.
So, here you can see the texture of the paper. I can.
It's really nice, actually. You actually can see that in printed books of yours as well.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice to see it. Sometimes it's overwhelming. So the production people who work on my books, I'm sure they don't love working on my books, but they always do a great job. And you really
Yes.
have to calibrate to decide how much you want to show, because you can make
Yeah.
them disappear. You can make the texture disappear, or you can make it a little bit too much. To see, if you, like, for example, sometimes you see it and it's like this, and it's like it's a little too much. You almost don't see the line anymore.
Yes, yes, yes. I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So yes,
Yeah.
in the art department at the book publishers, they will do any of that technical tweak.
Yeah.
Which brings me to actually a very quick question from Kevin, who says, "Thank you so much for the presentation. Have you ever considered working digitally or any other medium?" Yeah, that's a good question. But I guess you scan in and you do a little bit, but that's not your medium. You love traditional.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, I don't. Okay, there are. It's kind of a long answer, probably. In general, I don't enjoy working on a computer. I really like to work with,
Yeah, in life.
with pencil, with
Yes.
with pen and nib. But I do like some illustrators who work with Photoshop or whatever. Bob Shea, Lane Smith.
Oh yes, two
They
great
use,
illustrators too.
or Robert Watkins. They do use digital
Yeah,
techniques, which and they do a great work. So I don't have any preclusions. I just don't enjoy doing it
yourself.
as much. But
Yes,
as Claire was saying, I do sometimes combine drawings that I've done on the computer. So for example, now I don't know if I will have, okay, this is the part of the cover or Fish and Sun. As you see, there is something missing here. What is missing?
yeah, the sun.
The sun is missing because with all those kind of, all the rays, all the tentacles that the sun has, would have been very difficult to have a very homogeneous
Yes,
blue
smooth
background. Yeah, and so in this case, I decided to do it separately, and then I combined the two digitally. I
Yes.
scanned them both, and then I put them together. So
Yeah.
I do use the computer. I do use Photoshop for things like that, or small corrections.
Yeah.
If there is a splash you're done with your drawing, and you splash it right in the middle of the face of a character, like,
You can take it out. Yes.
normally you'd have to redo the drawing, but luckily once you scan it, you can go and retouch it, and you are
Exactly. So let's get to drawing, Sergio, because we've got about 25 minutes, and I definitely want to have our participants
sure.
drawing. So.
Yeah. I can. Okay, let's take this. This is the same paper that I used before. So it's an Arche paper. It's made in France. They've been making it since the 1490s. The same paper. And so normally what I would do is take a pencil, draw. Let's see. What can I do? I'm gonna create a character from just, I don't know what is gonna come up. I really didn't think about it. So let's make it while you're watching, and while you might be doing your own characters. So let's see. I'm gonna do like a shape, like a bean-like shape first. A long bean. Okay, I'm starting with here. I really don't like the fact that this is not curved enough. This is just pencil, so I can draw without thinking too much, because I can always erase and redo it. It's when I ink with the ink that is more tricky. I'm gonna give this bean too big feet. I think he needs too big feet.
It's just a little bit soft, the pencil line. If
okay.
you could push a little bit harder, I think it might be easier for kids to see it. I don't know, maybe
Yes.
you can see it better. I'm looking at it on a computer screen. Some people have is on their television, but yeah, can you
Okay.
see it, everybody? That's like a bean shape, and then there's some legs now added.
Okay, I'm gonna make it a little darker.
Yeah, I think that might help. Thanks, Sergio. Yeah, perfect. Much better. So everybody draw along.
Of course, you can come up with any character that you want. You don't have to draw what I'm drawing.
Yeah, exactly. You can draw a shape, different shape. You can draw the legs and feet you would like to draw.
Now I'm gonna give this character 2 eyes. Why not? And then a long nose, like a piggy.
Ah, yeah, there's a new character being created right before our eyes.
Okay, look at this thing. What I did. Look at this. His expression like this.
Just a simple.
And then I added two little lines.
Yeah.
And it changes.
Yes,
completely.
it changes. Yes.
And then I can change expression. Let's say it's very. I want to show you this character, which I don't know. Anyone has suggestion for a name for this character?
Oh, good. Yeah, good question there. So somebody think of a name and write it in the chat. The first one that I see, I'll tell Sergio. Homer?
And I'm gonna do him very upset right now.
Oh, we've got one. Karen has said Nido. That's a good name.
Mido? Okay, Mido.
Nido with an A. Yeah, Nido.
Milo.
Nido.
Oh, Mido.
Nido. That's my dog's name, Milo. Actually, it's Milo.
Ah, okay.
Milo. Yeah, Nido.
You know what we can do though? We can do this. Milo, and now it looks like Nido is upset with Milo.
Yes,
Milo.
exactly.
Milo, what are you doing?
So also you just saw Sergio do something there, which I always tell students, if you make a little mistake, try to make it into something else. That's very clever. So, good.
Okay, let's see what.
Oh, so Dana said Grumpy. That's also a good name, because in that name, Grumpy, you can immediately know the character's personality.
Right. And now with his arms like that, it's even more upset. See?
Yes.
So sometimes it's not only the facial expressions that give you the idea of what the feelings of the characters are, but also the way their body is.
Yes, so true. And actually, one of your spreads, Custard is not even saying no on one of them, or maybe even more than one, I think. But he's just got the expression, like he's already fed up. I think it might be one, but the mouse rat character is he a mouse or is he a rat? Which do you prefer, Sergio?
I think it doesn't matter. I think a rat, but
I think a rat, yes. So anyway, the rat character is pestering him, midway through the book, and I think by then Custard has some sort of expression like this. Oh, and I just remembered, I think Jan said they really liked the outfit that you'd picked for Custard. The little hat and the little sleeveless vest. It's very cute.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have clothes like that yourself, Sergio, in your own wardrobe? Do you have a hat like that?
If I don't have a hat like that, but maybe I should get one, the same color. Yeah.
Yes.
But let's see another character here. Maybe I can do. I have no idea what your dog looks like. I'm gonna do your dog.
He's a Dachshund. He's a mini sausage dog.
Yeah, a sausage dog. But okay. But yeah,
he has long-haired sausage dog.
Yeah. Okay. Let's pretend, because I understood you said a long-legged sausage dog. So that's probably
long hair.
No. That's probably not what you said, but I'm going to do a long.
Better. Yes, my dog could do with longer legs. Yeah, do him with long legs. It's good. You see the mind of Sergio, always twisting. That's good.
Okay, this is the shape of Milo. This is Milo. And then
Oh, he would love to have longer legs. Oh, look at that. This is sort of,
are you sure he would like this kind of long legs though?
they're very spindly. Like, look. Yes, that's hilarious. I mean, what character has legs like that? It's almost like spidery legs. So kids, I know you're drawing your characters. I know many of you love to draw characters. So do continue finishing your drawings even after the Saturday stories may have ended, because we've got still some time. We've got about 15 more minutes, and Sergio will do a little bit of showing you how he does his ink pen, which you already saw actually a little demo when he did his presentation. And maybe will you have time to show a little watercolor perhaps? So
I can do watercolor, or I can ink it.
Okay, whichever.
I can do. Okay, here's Milo.
Yes, well, the smile it does remind me of my Milo who's smiling. Yes, so wacky. So original, right? See how original Sergio's characters are? They're personalized by him. So like his drawings, you can do the same, make your own drawings. Yeah, look great, Milo. He's really mad with him. I wonder what Milo's done. There is a story here, obviously, to be continued. So let me see if there's any more questions happening. It's interesting, Sergio. Of course, after I learned more about you, it made sense that you were also a fan of Hieronymus Bosch, because without even knowing that, your illustrations somehow reminded me of him. You know
which is interesting, because maybe when I was little, I would really do things that had that kind of craziness. But recently, in my books, you cannot really see that. But I know many people told me that without me telling them before that Bosch was my inspiration.
Yeah, it's not obvious. It's just something about it. It's just something. And also, your color palette is so warm. And actually, I think there was a question earlier, and I will ask that now. I think that was Jan's question. You showed us how you did the grayscale, like just the gray painting with the shadows and things. Right. Do you often do an underpainting? How do you sort of add those?
Yeah, look. Yeah. Look, for example, every time I do a color, a watercolor, the very first thing I do is giving a yellowish wash everywhere. This helps when to give all the colors a uniformity. It's the same warmth. Having this little yellow in the background really helps keeping all the colors together, holding the colors together. And I always do that. If you look at my books, at my drawings, what is supposed to be white, for example, the pages of this book, you perceive them as white, but then when you really look at them, you can tell that there is a little bit of yellow.
Yes, and that actually creates a sort of aged feel to the drawings, because like the older postcards and the older maps that you so love, it has that feeling. That's what creates that warmth, that lighting. Yeah. There we go. Behind the scenes with Sergio Ruzzier. Yay.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you again. This is my nib. It's a nib that I use. It's I don't know how to pronounce it. It's a German name, Brause, Brause, 511. And again, there are like hundreds of different nibs. This is the one that I use. Let's see if I can focus it well. Okay. See?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So as Sergio said, there's a lot of different nibs. You just have to start experimenting and seeing which ones you like. Yeah.
So this is a nib that has a point that splits. So when you press, the ink comes down from here, because you dip it, as I'm gonna do now. I dip it, making sure that this doesn't drop into your page, and then
And that satisfying sound of the scratch.
I know. And the great thing with this nib in particular, there are nibs that are harder, there are nibs that are softer. This one is really a nice balance.
Right.
And you can do a very thin line that probably you will barely see on the screen. And then with the same, you can do something like this.
Right.
So it's really very helpful when you're doing a drawing that has small details and maybe bolder things in the foreground, and you don't have to change the nib. It's always the same nib, and when it's very versatile.
Wonderful. That's a really good tip. Yeah, so when you're putting pressure on that nib, then that split happens and the ink goes down into that little groove, I suppose, or valley. Yeah, I don't know what that's called. That's probably has a special name. Yes. Yeah, it's really great to see it. I was just imagining you doing this by candlelight. Like the old times, you know, when people wrote with an ink pen like that, a dip pen. So what ink do you use? Do you use a Japanese brand or?
No, this is actually Pelican. It's I don't even know if it's English or German, but it's Pelican.
Okay, Pelican. Yes, I know Pelican. Yeah.
And again, this is black, but I also use the sepia mixed with water and black.
And also, I think with the rat character, did you water down the black for his outline? Because he's very softly outlined as well.
Yeah.
Custard,
For Custard, for this book, the lines is always, if you look at it well, it's kind of transparent, so you can see through because it's not black, but it's a light brown.
Yeah, you didn't use black at all, right? Throughout the whole, only the type, so the type would stand out for the story.
Exactly.
Yeah. And how much do you have? Quite a big input since you're the creator, you know, author, illustrator. Do you? Well, I'm sure at this point, because you've done so many books, the art department works with you seamlessly to get what you want out of the finals. But for this color palette, you presented it like this. This was what you wanted from the beginning, was this sort of outline to be more?
Yeah, I mean, usually, like if you look at my books, more like you can tell what kind of palette I'm gonna use most likely, right? Unless I want to do something different from the beginning, and then like for example, Fox and Chick is a little different. So I did a sample to show the editor and the art director what I would do. And then, you know, doing picture books is really a collaboration. Of course, my name is on the cover. I'm the author, I'm the illustrators, I'm responsible for it. But it's really a collaboration. Like when it's really good when you get to discuss choices, options and choices with your editor and your art director. It's a very important moment. And I do like to receive feedback, and sometimes there is disagreement, and then you think about what is the best thing for that book, not for your own ego, but what is the best choice, the best option for that specific problem in the specific book, and then you agree on something.
Yes, and that just makes it better. It's honing it, as we say. You know, so I think, you know, as a storyteller, as you said in your earlier years, that you really love story, and you started creating cartoon stories very young. So being an author illustrator is the best for you, right? Because you get to do the whole thing. It's like a little mini movie. You're creating the sets, the costumes, the characters, the story, the lighting. It's
I love doing that, but I have to say that illustrating other people's text has its own advantages and And for example, when I'm illustrating my own texts, while I'm drawing, it's a little bit like having the author behind your shoulders who tells you, but no, that's not what I meant when I wrote that. You know, when I illustrate other people's work, I can be a little mischievous. I can do things that are not expected. It's easier for me to be rebellious in a way.
Yes,
I can even
You know,
even
that's what they say. The illustrator brings something extra to the author's writing. So yeah, that's
right.
true. I just wanted to see if is it tricky for you to do a little bit of watercolor? We've got
No, I can show you. I can show you, sure.
Yeah, we can run over by about 5 minutes. It's about 5 to 12, but we can do a few more minutes just to see you do a bit of watercolor.
What I'm gonna do is that, because I cannot go over with watercolor on this because the ink is still very fresh, so I'm just gonna color directly on the pencil drawing that I did.
Yes,
okay?
That's actually very good, because you're going to demonstrate exactly what Jan just asked. Do you wash with the yellow over the pencil? And that is a question. So I think you do, right? I think you said you do all your pencil drawings first and then you do the watercolor base.
Yeah. Usually I do the pencil drawing on any piece of paper, really.
Yes.
And then when I'm happy with it, I trace it on the watercolor paper.
Yes.
Then the way I showed you to you earlier, I do the pencil drawing, I ink it, and then when the ink is dry, I erase the pencil underneath, because you can still see some traces of the ink underneath.
Right.
Of the pencils underneath. So
the pencil.
So I erase it, and then at that point I can watercolor it, and it's okay, because as you said, if it's black or if it's that sepia the way I use it, then it's not gonna run. So it's gonna be fun. So I'm gonna give. Let's see. Okay, this is the watercolors I'm using. The one that you saw before. It's still the same. It's still the same.
Yes. And I'm just gonna just mention. So those paints. Those, just so everyone knows, those are like little pans. Those are little squares that you can, if you use one up, you can replace it, or you can choose different colors, right? So it's actually nicer than having tubes in a way. Yeah,
I like that more. I usually buy only the yellow in a tube, because I use huge quantities. So I make a jar of yellow like this, mixing water with the.
Because you've got to keep that consistent as well. So you need a lot of that. Yeah. Did you go through a lot of yellows to find the right yellow?
Yeah. It was. I used this one. This is the yellow, the 220 of Schminke. This one.
Yeah.
But yes, I did try a few, but this is perfect. I really like the warmth of it. Anyway, this is the watercolors that I'm gonna soon replace the ones that are done in my palette.
So fun. It's like going to the candy shop, going to the art shop.
So let's see. Of course, Milo must be blue, right? I think
of course.
I'm using a big brush. Usually I don't use a big brush like that, but so that you see it better.
Yes, that's great. We can see very well.
One thing that you have to be careful with watercolor, if you don't want it, that as soon as the watercolor dries on the paper, it makes lines, right? Like if I stop watercolor here, okay, and I wait a little too long, this dries, and then you will never be able to remove that line from there. So the way I use watercolor, I want to keep
it moving.
The watercolor wet so that I can move the color.
Yeah, very good.
But again, this is my way of using it. There are some watercolorists who are actually a completely different approach, and they wet the area first, and then they go over and they like to see how the color runs in the wet area. Like, and I'm gonna show you something that I usually don't do, but other illustrators do. Okay. Yes. For example, if I go with purple, where I put the wet blue, look at that.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So it can be very nice. It's not the way I do it, but it can be very nice.
Yes.
So other illustrators will do that. For example, Chris Rashka does that a lot, and his results are beautiful. Now I'm going to do the purple legs of this dog. Of course, I'm doing it quickly, so I'm not as precise as I usually like to be. If you look at my drawings, it's there that you see like a brush stroke that comes there are some imperfections, but are kind of nice to see.
Yes.
See, for example, the pink on the page there.
Yes.
But it's never this. The thing is that it's gonna take me a long time. If I had to color this figure, this character, the way I usually do, it would take me a couple of hours. So maybe maybe it's not the right thing to show. But so that's why I wanted to show you.
Yes, thank you for sharing it quickly. But still, it's beautiful. You can see how you just are so, I want to say the word adept, but adept means like very confident and very comfortable with painting with that brush, even though it's a big brush.
I have to confess that I feel quite comfortable using watercolors, but it's the only color technique that you ever use. I'm not an experimenter, and I'm very I admire people who can change. Like, for example, a friend of mine and a great illustrator is Paul Zelinsky.
Oh, I
and
know.
every book it uses a different technique. It's crazy. Like, and he learns a new technique, and he can do oil paintings, he can do pencil drawings, he can do digital, he can do watercolor. He's so talented that I don't know how he does.
He even has done mechanical paper. Yeah, definitely. That's a very good example of someone who does a lot of amazing styles. But I think, you know, where you experiment, Sergio, is in the actual characters. They are completely original. I really love your characters so much.
No, but I also like, but I do like, I mean, as I said, it's the only technique that I use, but I really think it's a beautiful, I don't know, there is something about watercolor that really satisfies me. It's something that makes me happy when I'm working on it. And I'm, you know, and if you go like slowly, you build up your tones, you build up your volumes little by little. Yeah, you can make mistakes, but if you are very cautious, there are not many opportunities to make really bad mistakes that you cannot fix. The usual mistake in watercolor is when you do something too dark, and then you can always do it darker, but you cannot, you can never make it lighter. Right.
That's true.
So you have to be that's why you have to build it from very light to the darkest you want to get.
That's exactly going to answer a question that Jan's just asked. So do you use multiple layers of watercolor to get deeper colors?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always add watercolor once the color underneath is dry.
Yes.
So this thing is very nice, but I usually don't do it.
Yes. It's not. It's made a sort of fuzzy, furry texture. Of course, you would have to probably use a hairdryer or something to get that dried off quickly. But just to let other people know that you would, if you didn't want to have that bleeding effect that has just happened with the purple spots. Look at what Sergio has. He has his trusty hairdryer handy. He will dry it very quickly and then be able to. You want to work with your shadows on dry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you have to wait for every section of the color of the drawing to be dry before you go on, it takes you days.
Yes, true. Yes. Well, it's sad we've come to the end of Saturday Stories today, but it's been so incredible seeing how you work, Sergio. Thank you for sharing so many insightful tips for our participants. And
if any of the kids have things that they want to share, I would be happy to see.
Yes, please send everything in, kids or adults, whoever's been joining us this morning. We are thrilled to see your work. It really does give us pleasure to see what you've been working on. And we will share that with Sergio, of course. All of Sergio's books are available in indie bookstores, which we like to try to support the smaller bookstores, but of course you can get the book anywhere books are sold. And you can also get them from your library. Don't forget your library. So there are a lot of books to enjoy from Sergio. And thank you again for joining us this morning. And congratulations on all your amazing awards. And this is a very special book. I'm sure it's going to be enjoyed by many people.
For being here, for listening